Immediate execution request. Resolution from citizens of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. I, being a citizen of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, residing on the territory of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, guided by the highest status of a human in Soviet law, on the basis of the UN Charter, preamble, we, the peoples of the United Nations, resolved to deliver future generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lives has brought unspeakable grief to mankind, and to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights and the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women, and in the equal rights of nations, large and small, and create conditions under which justice and respect for obligations arising from treaties and other sources of international law can be observed, and to promote social progress and better living conditions in greater freedom. And for this purpose, be tolerant and live together in peace with each other as good neighbors, and combine our forces to maintain international peace and security, and to ensure by the adoption of principles and the establishment of methods that the armed forces shall not be employed except in the general interest, and use the international apparatus to promote the economic and social progress of all peoples. We decided to combine our efforts to achieve these goals. Accordingly, our respective governments, through representatives assembled in the city of San Francisco, presenting their full powers found in due form, have agreed to accept the present Charter of the United Nations and hereby establish an international organization to be called the United Nations. Chapter 1. Purposes and Principles. Article 1. The United Nations pursues their goals to maintain international peace and security, and to this end to take effective collective measures to prevent and eliminate threats to the peace and suppress acts of aggression or other breaches of the peace, and to carry out by peaceful means, in accordance with the principles of justice and international law, settling or resolving international disputes or situations that may lead to a breach of the peace. Develop friendly relations among nations based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples, as well as take other appropriate measures to strengthen world peace. To carry out international cooperation in solving international problems of an economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian nature, and in promoting and developing respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion, and to be essential for coordinating the actions of nations in the pursuit of these common goals. Article 2. To achieve the objectives referred to in Article 1, the organization and its members shall act in accordance with the following principles. The organization is founded on the principle of the sovereign equality of all its members. All members of the United Nations shall fulfill in good faith the obligations assumed under this charter in order to secure to them all collectively the rights and benefits arising from membership in the membership of the organization. All members of the United Nations shall settle their international disputes by peaceful means in such a manner as not to endanger international peace and security and justice. All members of the United Nations shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, or in any other manner inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations. All members of the United Nations shall render its fullest assistance in all actions taken by it in accordance with this Charter, and shall refrain from rendering assistance to any state against which the United Nations takes preventive or enforcement action. The organization shall ensure that non-member states act in accordance with these principles as may be necessary for the maintenance of international peace and security. This Charter in no way authorizes the United Nations to intervene in matters which are essentially within the domestic jurisdiction of any state, nor does it require the members of the United Nations to submit such matters for resolution under this Charter. However, this principle does not affect the application of enforcement measures under Chapter 7. Participating. Chapter 2. Members of the organization. Article 3. The original members of the United Nations are the states which, having taken part in the San Francisco Conference for the establishment of the international organization, or having previously signed the Declaration of the United Nations of January 1st, 1942, have signed and ratified this Charter in accordance with Article 110. Article 4. Admission to membership of the organization is open to all other peace-loving states which will accept the obligations contained in this Charter, and which, in the judgment of the organization, are able and willing to fulfill these obligations. The admission of any such state to membership in the organization shall be by a decision of the General Assembly on the recommendation of the Security Council. If preventive or coercive action has been taken against any member by the Security Council, the General Assembly shall have the power, on the recommendation of the Security Council, to suspend the exercise of the rights and privileges vested in it as a member of the organization. The exercise of these rights and privileges may be restored by the Security Council. Article 6. A member of the organization that systematically violates the principles contained in this Charter may be expelled from the organization by the General Assembly on the recommendation of the Security Council, with the participation of authorities. Chapter 3. Authorities. Article 7. The main organs of the United Nations are the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, the Trusteeship Council, the International Court of Justice, and the Secretariat. Subsidiary bodies, as deemed necessary, may be established in accordance with this Constitution. Article 8. The United Nations places no restrictions on the right of men and women to participate in any capacity and on equal terms in its principal and subsidiary organs. Chapter 4. General Assembly. Compound. Article 9. The General Assembly consists of all members of the organization. Each member of the organization shall have no more than 5 representatives in the General Assembly. Functions and powers. Article 10. The General Assembly is empowered to discuss any question or matter within the scope of this Charter or relating to the powers and functions of any of the organs provided for in this Charter, and except as provided in Article 12, to make recommendations to the members of the United Nations of the Security Council or both the members of the United Nations and the Council Security on any such matters. Prohibit administrative influence of Article 17, Paragraph 3. The General Assembly examines and approves any financial and budgetary arrangements with the specialized agencies referred to Article 57 and examines the administrative budgets of such specialized agencies with a view to making recommendations to the institutions concerned. A member of the organization that is in arrears in the payment of monetary contributions to the organization shall be deprived of the right to vote in the General Assembly if the amount of its arrears equals or exceeds the amount of contributions due from it for the previous 2 full years. The General Assembly may, however, authorize such a member to vote if it finds that the delay in payment was due to circumstances beyond its control. Being occupied by the commercial structure of the Russian Federation, Russia, which misled the citizens of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, including the inaction of the bodies of the world community and United Nations representatives who directly from 1991 know and do not apply international law, Article 4, Article 6 of the United Nations Charter on the illegal seizure of the territories of a sovereign state as the winner and liberator. For this, at the Yalta Conference in February 4 till 11, 1945, the unofficial but generally recognized state borders of the USSR were demarcated. Thus, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in 1945 received in legal field the status of the state, and the people of the USSR received the status of permanent citizens of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. This USSR is a legal subject of law and peoples to this day, and we, citizens of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, are the masters of our territory. The inviolability of borders and territorial integrity was secured later on the 8th of January in 1975 by the final act of the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe. In 1982, the people of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics adopted the USSR law of November 24, 1982, number 8318X, on the state border of the USSR, Ведомости of the USSR Armed Forces of December 1st, 1982, number 48, signed by the first Deputy Chairman of the Presidium of the USSR Supreme Council and the Secretary of the Presidium of the USSR Armed Forces. On this, a point was put with bodies of the People's USSR in 1945, including the founder of the United Nations Organization on the basis of the United Nations Charter, Article 23, where the main founder is declared the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. We express to you all prohibitions, veto on the supply of any, including sponsorship, at the expense of all transfers and voluntary donations of weapons to the territory of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic on the territory of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and the termination of all trusts concluded by the Trade Corporation Russian Federation Russia, responsibility to lay on the executor who signed the documents, trusts under his signature. Also on the signed document in Strasbourg from 25 to the 29th of June 2014, Memorandum on the creation of an international new world order. Since the memorandum has no legal force and is informational in nature, by the signatory represented by the representative of the Russian Orthodox Church, Archbishop Hilarion of Volokholamsk, violates the rights of citizens of the USSR. Article 124 of the Constitution of the USSR of 1936. Article 124. In order to ensure freedom of conscience for citizens, the Church in the USSR is separated from the state, and the school from the Church. We demand to be guided by Article 26. In order to promote the establishment and maintenance of international peace and security with the least possible diversion of the world's manpower and economic resources for armaments, the Security Council shall be responsible for formulating, with the assistance of the Military Staff Committee referred to in Article 47, plans for the establishment of an arms control system for submission to members of the organization. We demand to respect the charter of this organization in relation to self-identified citizens of the USSR/ISFSR. Article 33. Parties to any dispute, the continuation of which could threaten the maintenance of international peace and security, should first endeavor to resolve the dispute by negotiation, inquiry, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, litigation, recourse to regional bodies, or agreements, or other peaceful means in their own way, choice. The Security Council, which it considers, if necessary, shall require the parties in resolve their dispute by such means. Article 34. The Security Council is empowered to investigate any dispute or any situation which may give rise to international friction or give rise to a dispute, to determine whether the continuation of the dispute or situation could threaten the maintenance of international peace and security. Article 35. Any member of the organization may bring any dispute or situation of the nature referred to in Article 34 to the attention of the Security Council or the General Assembly. A state which is not a member of the organization may bring to the attention of the Security Council or the General Assembly any dispute in which it is a party, if it accepts its advance in respect of that dispute, the obligations of peaceful settlement of disputes provided for in this Charter. The determination by the General Assembly of matters brought to its attention under this article shall be subject to the provisions of Articles 11 and 12.